Nowadays, because the common villain for the modern right is undocumented migrants, that's the reason why they immediately hit the undocumented migrant button. For some on the internet, their common villain is trans people. So whenever there's a mass shooting, they say, oh, it's a trans person that did that.
You little tater tot bitch. We are 2 minutes and 35 seconds into this video. I'm just gay as the rest of us, motherfucker.
Feels just the same. Another sunny day in LA. Everything is fine, so they say. Wonder what the news is.
The FBI says Shamsuddin Jabbar raced onto a packed Bourbon Street from Canal Street in a pickup truck with Texas plates and an ISIS flag. There's video being reviewed by FBI of 3 men and 1 woman placing bombs around the area. It's a tragedy. Yes, it is a tragedy. This is what I do. I cover I'm a news political commentator. Okay. A couple things that are immediately interesting, obviously, is that yesterday we talked about the surveillance state. Yesterday we talked about how the police are supposed to navigate around these sorts of things and apprehend suspects and have this like massive net of surveillance, and how that is going to subvert and apprehend and stop additional, terror attacks from potentially taking place. Now, what's interesting is, as I said yesterday, they don't do that. It doesn't actually end up doing that, playing that role at all. And this is yet further evidence that it doesn't do that at all. But having said that, we have I don't want to show the video here if it shows like the actual he just kind of hooks a right directly in to the crowd, passing a cop car. I won't show the rest of it, but I just wanted to show you that like they have what do you call it? They have placed barricades
with local and federal.
Anyway, here's the FBI. We'll now tune into the FBI press briefing that took place. We'll listen to the press conference that took place. Also, on top of that, the local press conference with the police, and apparently Kennedy was there as well.
Ongoing investigation.
Oh, it was a Ford F-150 Lightning. That's why its pickup is crazy. All right, that makes sense. Because it was that right hook turn is like, it's not the most significant factor here, obviously, but like it does. It's a heavier vehicle, and also two, it can accelerate with incredible speed, like much faster than an ICE engine car of similar weight.
Into the tragic attack in New Orleans. This is Fox News live coverage of the terror attack, the New Year's Day terror attack in New Orleans. Let's listen now to the officials.
I'm going to provide you some facts and information about what we do know. I know that all of you will have questions, and we will try to provide some answers. But this is an ongoing investigation that's rapidly evolving. So there are some questions I will be unable to answer at this time.
There's a YouTube video that is now deleted of the suspect as well. It's just like, it's crazy to me that, God, everything is logged online. It's wild.
The FBI is the lead investigative agency to be acquitted on the Chinese.
Did they not change the microphone? That's crazy. I assume that there's got to be a better mic here, right? If only they were a billionaire CEO, the cops would have done a better job. No, they wouldn't have. That's the whole. They wouldn't not. They would not have. I don't think they're. I mean, the cops couldn't stop Brian Thompson from being shot in broad daylight either. Yeah. CNN has it. I don't think CNN has uploaded it yet. But I will go to the CNN. I will try to find the CNN coverage.
Also located in the French Quarter. As of now, 2 IEDs have been found and rendered safe. The FBI's agent bomb tech as our local law enforcement.
They're trying to fix the audio, I think.
Contact us.
Oh, there it is.
The FBI is asking the public's help. We're asking anyone who has information, video, or pictures to provide it to the FBI. We have set up a digital tip line as well as our 1-800 number, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Please provide us with any information that can assist us in this investigation. Once again, thank you for your patience and assistance. For an updated statement or information.
Calling it terrorism reads racist. I mean, no, it is. It is an act of. It is definitionally an act of terrorism. The problem is, I guess, that is intentionally vague and almost always, almost never applied to white supremacist domestic terrorists, even though they run up the numbers. But it is. It's an act of terror. Like 100%. This is colloquially when you talk about trying to kill as many civilians as possible, that is an act of domestic terror. Okay, whether it's by car ramming, whether it's by shooting, whether it's by blowing stuff up with IEDs, improvised explosive devices, that is definitionally and colloquially what you would consider to be an act of terrorism. Okay, the fact that he did this with an ISIS flag or potentially converted to Islam and then got radicalized and was potentially working with other people, that doesn't make it more terrorism. And then like someone like Dylan Roof, less terrorism. Those would both be colloquially and even with the vague interpretation of what the terror designation is, both of those would still be considered acts of terrorism. The problem, of course, is that in many circumstances, when it's a white supremacist domestic shooter or an anti-government far-right extremist of different backgrounds, they are oftentimes not considered terrorists in the same frequency as obviously someone who might be an Islamic revert or someone doing it at the behest of ISIS. Okay? That's the difference. They just don't call the other thing that. But even then, the definition is intentionally vague regardless. Flag was found inside the car. Then they hang it up. I don't know if that's the case. What? That seems insane, especially because they, from the videos I saw, I think they hid the flag. Anyway, it is a horrifying tragedy, of course, in an unimaginably violent nation, in a nation where this sort of thing happens all too frequently. If you rob it of the identity markers, death and destruction is incredibly commonplace. Mass shootings are a lot more frequent in this country than any other nation. And yet, this on top of, this will most likely get a lot more understandable coverage considering the timing and also the potential implications given who did this act of violence. Now, the usual actors that want to turn every tragedy into another talking point for their pet issues seemingly considered this to be an undocumented migrant. New Orleans terror attackers said to have come across the border in Eagle Pass 2 days ago. Shut the border down. Who did our government bomb lately that is taking it out on innocent Americans? Apparently, the New Orleans car ramming attacker was also a U.S. citizen born and raised in Texas. Also, crime rates are not anywhere close to where they've been in the past, but neither Trump nor Sheet will let facts get in the way of their hateful narrative. Here's the Trump statement. When I said that criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, the statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. Because they are more, like the right wing is broadly more focused on undocumented migrant crime and consistently trying to portray that as the overarching narrative so they can tie it back to their white nativist immigration strategies. They jumped the gun and immediately went, oh, this is an undocumented migrant. Not realizing that this is another type of common narrative that you can always point to, which is Islamic terror, right? So they kind of blew their load a little bit too early, it seems. Apparently, Fox News also tried to hit the human smuggling angle here.
About the particular truck that was used in this, we know.
What?
That was used in this. We know that it was a rental. We know that it was brought from Texas and it was spotted in Eagle Pass, Texas, back on November 19th. But we understand that the truck does have a history of plate readers. It never actually passed through from Mexico into Eagle Pass. However, the license plate on this truck.
I heard he's aligned with ISIS. Damn, Twitter needs to be banned. No, the FBI has said that he is aligned with ISIS. It's not simply a Twitter narrative. Like, people aren't just making that up.
Has a history of plate readers at the border in patterns, and I'm quoting, that may be suspicious for human smuggling. When this story first broke, a lot of people wanted to know the identity of the suspect. When you hear human smuggling, you think about the border, and the border has obviously been such a dangerous, ignored problem for this country, with so many of these sleeper cells and terrorists who want to harm Americans illegally crossing our borders. What part of that most alarms you?
Well, you know, I've been alarmed by terrorists and criminals crossing our border for some time. In fact, one of the lawsuits that I filed against the Biden administration addressed the fact that the administration was not removing violent criminals who had been convicted and served their time and were subject to removal under federal law. So, and we know that there are a number of other people who've been allowed across our border without any real checking, and that we've got known terrorists among us. This is part of the same pattern. It is very concerning, and I think that we've got a lot of sorting out to do when the new administration takes over.
Crazy theory, I know, but isn't it weird that all this lines up with the border stuff to help Trump justify his weird soft invasion plans for Mexico? I mean, it's not. That's not crazy. The crazy thing is they jumped the gun to very clearly treat this as though it was an undocumented migrant, or at least like heavily leaning on the side that like this is an undocumented migrant related attack, because that is what they are trying to, look, the government has certain enemies, okay, that they like to point to. The right specifically, and sometimes even Democrats, like to point to a common villain. If you have a common villain that everyone needs to be afraid of, you can justify a lot of crazy invasions of privacy. You can justify a lot of military action. You manufacture consent surrounding this common villain with stereotypes in media. And right now, that common villain is not Muslims broadly, even though that was the common villain, the number one enemy of America and the number one enemy of the West for quite a while under the War on Terror, America's War on Terror initiatives. Okay? Nowadays, because the common villain for the modern right is undocumented migrants, that's the reason why they immediately hit the undocumented migrant button. For some on the internet, their common villain is trans people. So whenever there's a mass shooting, they say, oh, it's a trans person that did that. For some on the right, the common villain is undocumented migrants. So whenever there's a mass shooting, they go, oh, that was an undocumented migrant that did that. The statistical probability does not matter in this situation. It does not matter. It doesn't factor into the equation at all. even though the most common acts of domestic terror are conducted by oftentimes straight white men. Doesn't matter, by the way. I'm not saying that to be like, this is somehow important to factor in. It's just that even if you don't engage in any sort of speculation, these people oftentimes do not engage in any sort of statistical analysis. When engaging in this speculation, it's purely to use any sort of violence to contribute to the overarching enemy's narrative that they have. If you're a hyper transphobic person online, every mass shooting, regardless of who it is, you will always turn around and say it's a trans person. Okay? If you're Islamophobic, during the war on terror initiatives, during the war on terror manufacturing consent era, every single time there was another like right winger or whatever that did a mass shooting, everyone would be like, oh, this is a Islamic terror, Islamic terrorism, Islamic terror. Okay. Nowadays, that common enemy is, for the right, for the modern right, the common enemy is undocumented migrants. The only thing that's important about this, understanding what's going on here, is that nobody really cares about waiting for more facts to come out and immediately jump to whoever the common villain is, the common villain of the day is, or the common villain of the month is, and say, oh, this is it. It must be a migrant. It turns out it's not. Turns out it's a dude born and raised in America, Army veteran, recent convert to Islam, and was, divorced from his first wife, and seemingly was exhibiting erratic behavior, according to the New York Times. A man who knew Shamsuddin Bahar Jabbar tells us Jabbar had converted to Islam, then began acting erratically in recent months. The concerning behavior led him having limited contact with his children. We also spoke to the man who rented the truck to Jabbar. Here's our updating story on the suspect in New Orleans. I will be talking about this a little bit further. Divorced from two wives. Sorry, he got divorced, he got remarried, and then I believe divorced again. Federal agents at the home of the second wife of the Bourbon Street attacker in Houston, Texas, where the woman's new husband, Dwayne Marsh, said Jabbar had begun to convert to Islam within the last year and was being all crazy. This is from Steve Herman, House Bureau Chief of Voice of America News, which is, well, you know what Voice America News is. Here's a video of him as well. 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, accused of carrying out the attack, uploaded a video to YouTube where he introduced himself as a property manager. And I gave you his background, his extensive background here as well. Hold on. Let me find that really quickly. Where is it? Oh, here it is. This is from Intercept investigative reporter, Guardian investigative reporter, written for Politico and Mother Joe's Business Insider, Jacqueline Sweet. Says Shamsuddin Jabbar's LinkedIn profile was deleted, but here are the ghost remnants. His current job was IT team chief at the U.S. Army Reserve. Previous job was information technology team leader at U.S. Army Reserve, information management officer at U.S. Army, senior information systems specialist at U.S. Army, human resources supervisor at U.S. Army, HR specialist at U.S. Army, data entry operator at U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, data entry clerk at U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, data entry clerk at United States Postal Service. His education is Central Senior High School. He has a Bachelor of Business Administration from Georgia State University, and he's a graduate from Fort Gordon NCO Academy. He's a graduate from 25B Information Technology MOS training and a graduate from U.S. Army Alaska NCO Academy. Associates from Central Texas College, associate's degree from Central Texas College, an honor graduate from 42A Human Resource Specialist Advanced Individual Training, graduate from U.S. Army Basic Combat Training, and University of Houston. Jabbar has several LLCs registered in Texas and Georgia, mostly seem to be real estate related. He had a Twitter account, which is now deleted, where he was active until at least 2021. Previous arrest in 2002 for driving with a suspended license in Texas. Here are some of his Here are some of his posts from his deleted profile. But like I said, or like Jacqueline is reporting, that the last time it seems that he was active on the platform was 2021. So I don't think that it would. I don't necessarily think that this like translates to his new point of radicalization. It gives a little bit of info on his background, but not necessarily anything significant about his new point of radicalization. Here, let's get to the FBI report.
Please check the FBI's website and our social media accounts. I will now turn over to Mayor Cantrell. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Agent Duncan, for your leadership and the full support of the FBI. First and foremost, I want to express my deepest condolences to the families and loved ones that were impacted by this tragedy on Bourbon Street and in the heart of the city of New Orleans. And I know that the entire New Orleans City Council grieves along right with me, no doubt about that, and our people and our families. My priority will continue to be to ensure that victims that remain on Bourbon Street now will be serviced and removed as soon as possible. But
What?
this tragedy in the city of New Orleans. The mission now is to facilitate, support.
It's giving PTSD. Look, man, we need to see more on his background before making before speculating. It can be a number of different things. It can be a point of radicalization that a point of radicalization post like PTSD posts, multiple divorces. It can be, I don't know. I mean, the ISIS is fairly closely aligned and affiliated with the American State Department. So that in and of itself is giving cause to speculation as well. It was non-combat. It doesn't matter. You can still get PTSD from even basic training. But that's not exactly the, I mean, that is, like I'm saying, it's one thing that, one of many different factors at play here.
And coordinate safety procedures to keep our residents and our visitors safe.
Can we please think about the poor Muslims that will suffer Islamophobia across the West? This person right here, Anglo Pigeon, is 100% saying this as bait. Okay? They're saying this as bait so that they can turn around and clip the reactions to what he's saying, to turn around and post it on Twitter to be like, oh, see, Hasan only cares about Muslims and the safety of Muslims, even though this is a damning indication that all Muslims are dangerous. Okay? That's what it is. And in an effort to be as charitable as possible, I'm going to ban this person. Yeah, inbred, you inbred Mosey scum. Inbred Mosey, deport them all. There it is. That's cool, man. He just knew that his time was coming, his ban was coming, and he just couldn't. Okay? Let me explain something very quickly. An act of unimaginable violence from one group, a person from a background that is not white, if you see that and say, Well, this is how all members of said group are like. Okay? That's just racism. Okay? That's it. That's all it is. The notion that one person's acts of violence is a damning indication for the entire race, ethnic background, or religion is insane. And it's the same as, for example, assuming that all Jewish people love what Israel is doing and across the board are on board with it and want to eviscerate Palestinian children. Okay? That's it. That's anti-Semitic, and it is bigoted thinking. It's stupid thinking. You understand? That's not how this works. Having said that, let's get back to this person's YouTube video.
Good evening. I'm Shamsuddin Jabbar, property manager with Blue Meadow Properties and team lead at the Midas Group at Core Realty. I just want to say hello and let you know a little bit about me. So I'm born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, and now live in Houston. And I've been here all my life, with the exception of traveling for the military, where I spent 10 years as a human resources specialist and IT specialist, where I learned the meaning of great service and what it means to be responsive and take everything seriously, dotting I's and crossing T's to make sure that things go off without a hitch. So I've taken those skills and applied them to my career as a real estate agent, where I feel like what really sets me apart from other agents is my ability to be able to, one, be a fierce negotiator.
To criticize Israel is not anti-Semitism, in my honest opinion. I am the number one critique of Israel, the number one criticizer of Israel, and am routinely falsely smeared as an anti-Semite for that reason. Of course, criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitism, but the assumption that all Jews love Israel and or any sort of conflation between Zionism and Judaism is anti-Semitic, no matter who is doing that conflation. It can be a Christian supporter of Israel, it can be a Jewish supporter of Israel, or it can be a Christian or Jewish not supporter of Israel. It does not matter. It can be Candace Owens making that conflation. It's still anti-Semitic. It could be Jake Tapper making that conflation or Joe Brandon making that conflation, and it still serves an anti-Semitic purpose.
So not only do I brilliantly market your property to make sure it gets sold as quickly as possible or gets...
It's remarkable how seemingly normal this guy comes across, by the way, in this video.
Least as quickly as possible, but I'm also going to take every ounce of energy and putting it into negotiating for you and for your property to get the best deal that you can possibly get for it. So once we get to the closing table, all the I's are going to be dotted, all the T's are going to be crossed, everything's going to go off without a hitch, and that is my word that I'm giving to you as your real estate agent. So if that's the type of agent you're looking for, reach out to me. You see my phone number on the page. If not, it's 832-774-9718. Give me a call. And even if you don't want to have me as your agent, call me with any questions you may have. So even if you're a first-time home buyer or you're an experienced real estate investor and you're just looking for somebody to help you with doing some analysis on some properties that you're looking at, either way, give me a call. I'm glad to help anytime, and I'm looking forward to talking to you.
This is not the Basquiat in the back. Only reason Republicans are government are coming out in support, not pulling the Lib City card. Super Bowl is there here in a month. We must protect Capitol. When black on black mass killings happen on Bourbon, we're scrutinized last a day in the media. People are saying there's red flags. How? Yeah, I don't know what you guys are talking about in terms of the red flags, because that just reads as like a fairly normal person. I don't pick up on any red flags here at all. I think what makes this unique is apparently his recent radicalization. just like a Texan man, Army veteran, and now real estate guy. Army veteran turned real estate guy. There are a million people like him. Like, I think in comparison to the Christmas market act of terror in Germany, in Magdeburg, that dude's social media footprint was insane. That dude's social media footprint was the ramblings of a psychotic madman who was ultra racist, ultra Islamophobic, AFD aligned. He was making the rounds on many other far right websites online. That one profiles like a mass shooter waiting to happen, or a terrorist waiting to erupt at any given moment. This person, so far, his profile online, what we can recover of his profile online, does not showcase a footprint that is consistent with what you normally see from people like this.
Safe. I've gone to the hospital along with Chief Kirkpatrick to visit our police officers, and considering their injuries, they're doing well. As I mentioned, this investigation is ongoing, and the
FBI knew from me, Pamela Brown and CNN. Investigators reviewed video showing 3 men and a woman who may have been involved in placing suspected improvised explosive devices in the French Quarter of New Orleans. Law enforcement sources tell CNN. Investigators have also found writings that the FBI believes support investigators' view that this was inspired by ISIS with the suspect. Oh, God, I can't even use these websites without freaking ad blockers now. Jesus Christ. Okay. Where's the live stream? Jesus, Lord mercy. Okay.
Happened, and both schools put out statements saying that the team, personnel, anyone that was traveling as a part of the team, the band included, they were all fine. But Georgia also did put out a statement saying that unfortunately one of their students was critically injured in the incident, Phil. So our thoughts and prayers definitely go out to that student as well as anyone that was affected in the attack.
Absolutely. Andy Scholes, thanks so much. Our next guest is someone who knows New Orleans quite well. I want to bring in Louisiana State Senator Royce Duplessis. Mr. Senator, you grew up in New Orleans. You were raised in New Orleans. What was it like to receive the phone call, to hear the news about this attack this morning?
Thank you, Phil. Well, waking up this morning, like most people, most normal people who they wake up on New Year's Day, you're looking forward to a new day, a new opportunity, and you're just grateful for all the blessings in your life. So to receive this type of devastating news at the time when I opened my eyes this morning was something that I just really couldn't believe. It was truly unthinkable. And my immediate thoughts went to the victims, trying to figure out how many people actually did die. We know at least 10 people have perished and over 25 have been injured. But to the point about having grown up in a city like New Orleans, major events is nothing new to us. Large crowd gatherings is part of our identity. And for something like this to happen, it certainly never happened in my lifetime. No terrorist event like this has happened. So it's been shocking to our core. But we are going to stand firm. We reject any type of terrorist acts. We will not be intimidated. And this will not define the city of New Orleans.
Yeah, the strength of the community, and anybody who's been down there understands kind of the love the community has for visitors. It pairs with the fact that the community is so good at handling things like this. 10s, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people coming in. That's a regular day that ends in Y down in New Orleans. I think the question with the delay of the game is concerns related to the fact that FBI officials, law enforcement officials saying the suspect may not have acted alone. What more do you know about that?
The RV, wasn't the RV explosion? Yes, where was that? It was in the South. It was in like near an AT&T facility, but it was also around New Year's, wasn't it? A couple of years prior. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about? I think it was in Nashville, right? Yeah.
For making the difficult but appropriate decision.
It was in Nashville, and wasn't it also around New Year's or was it Christmas?
cannot replace lives, and we've lost lives, and there's still more assessment to be done. And part of that assessment, a major part of that assessment, is to identify who these other actors are and swiftly apprehend them and thoroughly complete this investigation. Because in addition to giving the families the solace that they're going to need through this devastating loss, we are going to have to give residents and visitors a sense of comfort and a sense of safety that we investigated
2020
and solve this. And I believe and have full faith that all parties are acting in coordination at all levels to get to the bottom of this.
Well, our hearts and prayers certainly go out to you, to the community on the whole. Louisiana State Senator Royce Duplessis, thanks so much.
Thank you.
A live look in New Orleans right now. That's Bourbon Street.
It's crazy, man.
More new details just ahead.
There is also a Cybertruck explosion outside of a Trump Tower, but I don't think that is in any way, shape, or form related, but who knows? But yeah, suspect in New Orleans attack is identified as a Texan and had an ISIS flag with him. In a YouTube video from 2020, the man identified as a suspect said he had been born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, and had served in the U.S. military. We watched that video already. Shamsuddin Jabbar is his name, 42 years old, a native of Texas who has served in the U.S. Army, did a lot of IT work for the U.S. Army as well, and also was a real estate guy. The Federal Bureau of Investigation said it was examining an Islamic State flag that was found in the truck used in the attack, that it believed Mr. Jabbar was not solely responsible. Several improvised explosive devices were found and disposed of, officials said. CNN is also CNN breaking news on the Tesla Cybertruck that exploded outside of the Trump Tower. Is being investigated as a possible act of terror as well.
Just in, a law enforcement official briefed on that Tesla Cybertruck explosion outside of Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas tells CNN that the incident is now being investigated as a possible terrorist act. Police say it took place at around 8:40 a.m. local time. There was one person inside the vehicle who died, and 7 other people suffered minor injuries. The FBI is involved in this investigation, and we are going to stay on top of the story and bring you updates as we.
This happened right on New Year's, just before the Sugar Bowl game. We still both have Mardi Gras and the Super Bowl that our city of New Orleans is hosting in the coming months. We're shaking. Yeah, so here's the Tesla explosion. Oops, nope, that's just Elon Musk with his human shield at the Trump New Year's celebrations. Breaking video shows Tesla Cybertruck explosion at Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, cause unknown. Police confirmed the driver was killed in the Cybertruck explosion at Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. 7 others were injured. I believe he exploded a bunch of fireworks in the Tesla, the person, or all the secondary explosions that you see. Do not play. No, this doesn't show anything. You think it looks like a lithium could be battery cells, I guess. That's what lithium does. So one thing I don't understand also is that, like, even if it wasn't like purposely exploded, I thought it was confirmed that there were fireworks, but even if it was like random lithium battery explosions, I thought that this type of stuff was like impossible to put out in such a short period of time. Of course, never let a crisis go to waste. Senator Kennedy demands answers for the New Orleans truck attack. We're going to go back to the morning press conference in Louisiana. Louisiana Senator Kennedy also made an appearance. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
I wish I understood better why bad things happen to good people. If I make it to heaven, I'm going to ask. For those people who don't believe in objective evil, all you have to do is look at what happened in our city early this morning.
Well, you will not be seeing the pearly gates, Senator. That much I know.
I am, if this doesn't trigger the gag reflex of every American, every fair-minded American, I'll be very surprised. I'm here because these are my people. I'm here because these are my people's friends. I'm here because there are a lot of Louisianians that are scared tonight. I don't want them to be. There's a lot of information going around. Some of it is actually true. Some of it isn't. The federal government is now in charge of this investigation. By that I mean the White House, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Department of Justice. I have not talked to the FBI. Maybe they've talked to my staff. I don't know. I did talk to the Secretary of Homeland Security a little while ago. And I told him that with all the respect I could muster, that we expect to put the full force and resources of the federal government behind this investigation. Our state troopers, our local police departments, our sheriffs, we've got many sheriffs here today, have been terrific so far. The federal government is cooperating with them. I hope that will continue. Here's what I want to ask from the federal government. Catch these people. Catch these people. And then tell the American people the truth. Now, I don't want you to tell us yet anything that's going to interfere with your investigation. And there are things that I've been told that I think are true that I'm not sharing with you today because it could interfere with their investigation. But after we get to the bottom of this, they need to tell the American people the truth, and the people of New Orleans the truth, and the people of America the truth. I think the mayor and the governor are...
There are potentially other people that were working alongside the main perpetrator. That's what he's talking about. Gremlo said earlier on a stream that he'd love to come on your stream to talk about this since he's really familiar with New Orleans politics. I don't know if he's around right now, but I mean, I'll see in a little bit.
Very wise to postpone this ball game for 24 hours. There's just too much stuff we don't know, and it's just not worth it. But
is he insinuating that it was CIA? I doubt that Senator Kennedy would insinuate that this is a CIA thing, because the perpetrator is a Islamic convert who potentially got radicalized and had sympathies for ISIS. In that regard, it is actually closer to this being the work of the CIA if you are a conspiratorially minded person, considering the ISIS affiliations with the American State Department. But a person like Kennedy would never say that for a situation like this. He would only say that if it was a white supremacist, anti-government extremist or something like that. I think he's insinuating that this was the result of illegal migration. I don't know.
My final point is, I will promise you this. I will, when it is appropriate and this investigation is complete, you will find out what happened and who was responsible. Or I will raise fresh hell. And I will chase those in the federal government who are responsible for telling us what happened, like they stole Christmas.
All right, so that's another clip of him.
Can I say something, Riker? Tell me who you're with. WSU. Okay, and CBS.
NBC's over here on the right.
Oh, that's an unusual position.
I don't get it.
You wouldn't. Look, can I say?
Is he fucking drunk? Nah, this is just how he is all the time. That's just how he carries himself. To paraphrase Groucho Marx, John Kennedy here may talk like an idiot, look like an idiot, but don't let that fool you. He really is an idiot. He's not. You want to know something, guys? You know how we sometimes speculate that streamers and content creators portray themselves as much dumber than they actually are in an effort to fucking do content and maybe even shelter themselves from additional scrutiny? Like, oh, he's just a dumb guy. John Kennedy is one of the perfect examples of that. Not only is he an Ivy Leaguer, but he's also a Rhodes Scholar. Okay? So the whole, like, I'm a country bumpkin. Oh, don't listen to me. I don't know what the hell's going on. That's just simply a weaponization of incompetence. He literally is a Rhodes Scholar. Okay? He is a Rhodes Scholar. So all of that is just an act. I'm going to repeat his background for you just so you understand. He went to Vanderbilt University to get a bachelor, went to University of Virginia to get his JD, and then he went to Magdalen College in Oxford. Okay? At Vanderbilt, Kennedy studied philosophy, economics, and political science. He was elected president of his senior class and named Phi Beta Kappa. He graduated from Vanderbilt. He received a Juris Doctorate in 1977 from University of Virginia School of Law. There, he was the executive director of the Virginia Law Review, elected to the Order of the Coif. In 1979, he earned a Bachelor of Civil Law master's degree with first-class honors from Oxford University. Wait, I thought he was a Rhodes Scholar too. Is he not? But yeah, he graduated. He went to Oxford University. The attacker was brainwashed by religion. That's what happened. Yeah. HasanAbi, he's upset. His people are being attacked. Can't blame him. His people? Brother, we're all Americans. You know that, right? Like, what do you mean his people? What the fuck are you talking about, his people? We are all Americans, okay? When a terror attack happens on a New Year's Eve celebration with people from different backgrounds from all around the country, it is not a specific attack against, I don't know. I don't know what you're fucking saying here. You're thinking of Bill Clinton. He was a Rhodes Scholar. Oxford is Rhodes. Okay. So he's a Rhodes Scholar.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
Rhodes Scholarship recipient. He's saying the attacker was Muslim like you. Chatter was being a racist. Yeah. Okay. Let's hear what Wolf has to say.
I'm Wolf Blitzer. You're in the Situation Room.
This is something that happened 5 years ago. What does it matter now? What, the 2020 bombing? I only brought it up because the timing of that was also suspect, and we didn't fully understand what happened in that situation either.
People and injured dozens of others. We're also learning more about the driver of the truck and his background. CNN's Kyung La is standing by with new reporting, new information just coming in. But first, let's go to CNN's Omar Jimenez, who's on the scene for us in New Orleans. Omar, first of all, give us the latest on the investigation and the video now being reviewed by authorities.
Yeah, Wolf. So for starters, the FBI, we knew the FBI did not believe that this driver was solely responsible for what happened, to use their words. And we also knew from them that they found an ISIS flag in the vehicle along with a potential IED.
This is so weird, dude. Why do people do this? Close up of the officer's weapon in New Orleans. What is that pink stuff? It's just light, dude. It's light. Okay.
Investigators have reviewed
25,000 likes.
3 men and a
it's
woman
just
who
light.
they believe may have been involved in placing suspected IEDs in the French Quarter, and that investigators also found writings that they believe support their going theory that this was inspired by ISIS. Of course, comes on top of the flag that was found as well. And we know the FBI has said for most of the day that they have been investigating this as an act of terrorism. Now, there are also questions about how exactly this vehicle got around barricades that were installed years ago to sort of to try and prevent this very thing from happening. Well, we're getting a glimpse of kind of how this happened, specifically from some surveillance video from a business across the street from the key intersection here. It's actually the intersection behind me from where I'm standing. You see a white pickup truck come down Canal Street, essentially behind where I am now. And then a police officer, what appears to be, is sort of blocking Bourbon Street. But what you do see is that white pickup truck goes around that police officer and then goes into Bourbon Street, where, again, we know this attack unfolded. And we got a little clue from law enforcement today who told us that, well, those barriers just weren't working.
The driver didn't get away. He got out with a gun and then got shot and killed in the gun battle.
Instead, they put
that took place afterwards
in front of some of those.
I think 2 cops were injured as well, right, in the process.
Some of this happening, but that this person went around these vehicles onto the sidewalk and was able to evade some of those barriers. Now, there were a lot of extra people in town for a big college football game between Notre Dame and the University of Georgia. We also know from a shop owner that the crowds were still packed on the streets at around 3 a.m. when this attack actually unfolded.
Why are you reporting if you know none of the details?
Busy. We know that football game was pushed an extra day, but at the heart
of this,
of this,
are you talking to me or are you talking to CNN? Because I'm not reporting on anything. I'm not there. CNN is reporting on the details that we do know of that is confirmed.
After this attack that happened in just a few minutes, Wolf.
So awful and so sad indeed. Omar, I want you to stand by. I want to bring in our senior investigative correspondent, Kyung La, right now. Kyung, what more?
Why is this declared terrorism? Dude, if this was a white dude, okay, who drove a pickup truck into this crowded Bourbon Street New Year's celebration, okay, New Year's Eve celebration, it would still be an act of terrorism. Terrorism as a definition is intentionally vague and oftentimes politically applied towards enemies of the American state. Having said that, however, it like in the most basic definition of terrorism, trying to kill as many civilians as possible in an effort to, I don't know, create like a race war, or in an effort to say that you love ISIS, for example, would still fit that same would still fit that same definition. Objectively, this is, there's nothing weird about considering this an act of terror.
Titled Leadership. Now, authorities do confirm that he served in the U.S. Army. We do have a picture of him from that photo that was posted on Facebook from the U.S. Army. This is a picture of him in 2013. It's a Facebook post from the U.S. Army again, and he's identified in this photo as an Army Staff Sergeant working as an information technology team chief for the 82nd Airborne Division's 1st Brigade Combat Team, and that was back then in 2013. He also posted an online resume where he describes how he graduated from Central Texas College in 2010 and he received a bachelor's degree from Georgia State University in 2017. Georgia State does confirm that he did attend there and did graduate. And Texas records also show that he had a real estate license from 2019 and it expired in 2023. And then the last thing, Wolf, that we found really interesting, because it sort of lays the financial picture of his life currently, is that he was in a divorce with his first wife, and that in 2012 she had sued him for child support. But in 2022, he had submitted an email talking about how he was struggling financially. He wrote that he had fallen behind in house payments, that he feared that he was nearing foreclosure, that he was behind more than $27,000 in payments. He also wrote that the business that he had talked about in that YouTube video, that it had also not made money. He'd lost $28,000 and he was $16,000 in credit card debt, Wolf.
Lots of new information. Kyung-La, thank you. Omar Jimenez, thanks to you as well. I want to break all of this down with our law enforcement experts. Andrew McCabe, let me start with you. What are the next steps right now for the FBI and your former deputy director of the FBI as they try to determine who the individuals placing these improvised explosive devices in the area are?
Absolutely, Wolf. That is priority one for the FBI right now, to identify and locate those individuals who they have captured in the surveillance video, placing the IED devices, which at least two of which have been rendered safe, and therefore are probably providing the Bureau with some evidence that they can use to compare to the device and the other evidence that's been recovered from the truck. And so they may have a solid forensic connection between the IEDs, which would only confirm their suspicion that those three men and one woman are related to or working in concert with the driver of the truck. So that's the biggest potential threat the Bureau is probably focused on right now. And they are doing all the things that we have seen in these sorts of situations in the past. They are scouring video coverage to try to locate those folks and track their movements last night as they led up to the moment of placing the IEDs. They're trying to locate places to search. They're trying to locate individuals who might know something about those folks. So it's a lot of activity going on focused in that direction.
Critically important information they got to find out. Mary Ellen O'Toole, you're a former senior FBI profiler. What could these IEDs tell you about the perpetrator's intention? Does that suggest to you that a larger attack was indeed planned?
Certainly, and thank you for having me on. The IEDs will be.
There's a lot that make up a very normal narrative, and then there are some aspects of this that I consider to be a little like weird. How the fuck does a guy like divorced dad, Army veteran, all this stuff, right? Divorced dad, Army veteran, under debt, that makes up a very common thread for a point of radicalization for a lot of people. The ISIS shit, on the other hand, is weird. Like converting to Islam and then becoming like an ISIS supporter. That stuff, I mean, it could have happened after his point of radicalization due to his financial circumstances or whatever. But like, I don't know. I mean, it seems wild. It seems like a thread from, I don't know, what people oftentimes point to in Europe, even if there's no evidence for it whatsoever.
Designed and constructed so that they would actually be weapons of lethality as well. So that goes to the intent.
Especially considering his like extensive background in the military.
Charles Ramsey is with us as well, the former Washington, D.C. police chief, former police commissioner in Philadelphia. Chief Ramsey, what are the challenges for law enforcement right now?
What are you implying by that? I don't know. I'm saying that
while conducting this investigation.
Well, first of all, we all know the French.
I think. Look, I don't think. I don't look at situations like this and immediately go, "Ooh, there's a grand conspiracy here." Okay. Usually, what you see is what you get. Having said that, however, I would say that it could very well be the entry point into his radicalization was initially his material conditions that then caused him to go fucking nutso mode and then get radicalized, convert to Islam, and then get radicalized online. The very fact that he had people working with him potentially is also strange. A lot of the lone wolf incidents like this are lone wolf incidents. You know what I mean? It's just like one person that will engage in the ramming attack. But the fact that there's IEDs involved in this and potentially other people also involved in this as well, that like the police are looking around the entire area for additional improvised explosive devices. It's much more sophisticated and more coordinated than the average like point of radicalization. Like guy who's radicalized who just like goes into goes out and does an act of violence, even if it's at the behest of ISIS or whatever. I mean, the fact that they found the improvised explosive devices, like, in my opinion, getting the vibe that most of chat today is wanting to do a full conspiracy bulletin board. I don't know. I have no idea what happened. I will repeat that over and over again. I do not know what happened, and only time will tell. In many instances like this, we never get the full picture. Like, we don't even know the full picture of Stephen Paddock to this day, right? The Las Vegas shooter. Having said that, there's also within the initial breaking news coverage of this, there will oftentimes be incorrect information. So it's important not to read too far into it. Like, I'll give you an example. They're saying that there's numerous other IEDs, right, that they have found and intercepted. That could, one, be absolutely correct. Or it could be that the news is reporting it as IEDs, even though they were like fucking fireworks or something. You know what I mean? I'm using an example. I'm not telling you that that's what happened, but I'm using this as an example to show you that sometimes even well-intentioned people in their news coverage, when they're doing breaking news coverage, will just run with whatever the police initially thought was going on, and then later down the line, they will follow up and say, oh, no, these were actually not IEDs, improvised explosive devices, but instead it was just fireworks that we found. So it's important not to get lost in, it's important not to pull on certain threads and like really, really, it's important not to be too invested in immediate common threads in the aftermath of a situation like this,
left the way it was
and
left
wait
today,
for more
where there's
information to
still a lot
come
of
and
work
more
that has to be
verification to
done.
come
And
after
that's,
as well.
simply a matter of fact when you have a case like this. But when it's left like that, where we still have a lot more to do, what's not being said is there may be some important points, some important leads that we've not been able to close yet. And that, for most people, should give them pause as to whether or not they might want to attend that game, because they just simply cannot be guaranteed of their safety.
Yeah, I know a lot of folks are worried about that. Everyone stand by. We're going to continue this conversation. We'll have much more on the investigation as we learn new details. Exciting time in the world.
Damn, they just jumped into ads so quick. Also, there's additional updates on both the Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas and this New Orleans attack. But Elon Musk has confirmed that the explosion was caused by a very large fireworks and or bomb carried in the bed of the rented Cybertruck and is unrelated to the vehicle itself. All vehicle telemetry was positive at the time of the explosion. And Fightix News has brought forth AP Reuters coverage on this. Both the Cybertruck involved in the Las Vegas explosion and the truck used in the New Orleans terror attack were rented to the same app, Turo, which is not that unique, for the record. That's normal. Turo is an application used for exactly those kinds of vehicles, like Cybertrucks, F-150 Lightning, which is, I believe, the ISIS dude used. So it's not that uncommon, and I don't think there's anything unique about the application itself. It's just a rental application. It's a peer-to-peer rental service.
Las Vegas, because this has been a sort of interesting development. You know, the images of the Cybertruck parked outside the Las Vegas Trump property went viral. You know, sort of, I think people thought it was an accident and then no one was hurt, and so there was a sort of bizarre symbolism in that it was a Cybertruck, it was not Trump. As it's developed, it seems that this is being taken far more seriously. What have we learned about what authorities know and how they're investigating this?
Right, Chris. So according to the reporting of myself, my colleagues Andrew Blankstein and Kelly O'Donnell,
right now, 3 senior U.S. law enforcement officials say that this explosion of a Tesla Cybertruck, kind of in the portico there where you saw that smoke rising from in front of Trump's property in Las Vegas, is being investigated, at least initially, as a potential act of terrorism, and that it was, quote, intentional. And there was a...
Let's talk about...
I haven't seen a single pic of the ISIS flag. How can it do rollout with a flag around a super crowded city without people taking video and pics? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, is the flag on the car in the initial video when he's driving in? Because I didn't see that. Like, I don't know when the flag was planted on the car. It might have been covered. It's on, but wrapped up on the back. Oh, okay. So it was rolled up. It was not in the car. It was in the cab. People are saying it's, some people have said the flag was inside of the cab. Some people are saying the flag was rolled up in the back and then someone unveiled it. I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I have no idea.
Incident, and now this one that is also being investigated as this possible terror attack.
Stay with me if you can. Okay, I want to bring in Tom Winter to talk more about this, then also shifting gears, obviously, to what we've been following all day out of New Orleans. Tom, I know you're wearing 2 hats now, 2 potential terror attacks now that we're looking at in this country, the first day of 2025. If you can add on to some of what Emily was just talking about with her reporting here.
Right. So Emily referenced a lot of what we've been saying. My colleagues, Kelly O'Donnell, as well as Andrew Blankstein out west, who covers our West Coast. Basically, there's some
then
things
look
that they
into
found in
it.
the course
Are you
of
talking to me?
investigation,
I
the way
will
that
look
the car
into it.
explodes. And Elon Musk, by the way, has actually just put out on his X platform that he owns details about this, saying there was either some sort of fireworks that were packed in the bed of the truck or a low explosive device. It looks to me like it could actually be a combination of both, using fireworks as a means of creating a detonation that eventually creates the car being on fire, as you're seeing here. This is after the detonation occurs, this video that's taken. I've seen some surveillance video. We're just trying to make sure that we're going to be able to use it and show it to you, that shows the back of the Cybertruck in the bed, as Musk describes, effectively kind of blowing out. This is not a truck bomb. This is not a Oklahoma City type level of explosion. This person would not be standing there if that was the case, but it is something that is being looked at as an intentional act. And the belief now is that it could become a terrorist attack. There are going to be other steps that are going to be taken at Trump properties, but it's not yet clear as far as if there's any sort of additional existential threat. One thing I do want to point out, when we look at these type of incidents involving Trump, involving a Cybertruck and Musk, whoever did this knows that we're in the process of confirming a name, knows that this is going to get a lot of attention. Probably thought it'd get a lot more of attention than it did if we weren't talking about 10 people who are deceased or more as a result of a terrorist attack in New Orleans.
Right.
But whoever did this knew that. And as we saw with the Trump trial, there was a person who died by suicide.
Here's the flag covered up. I don't know if they covered it up themselves or if it was covered up, though.
For their cause, not necessarily a cause against Trump or Musk. So we have to keep that in mind as a potential possibility here. But it's just too soon to say, at least what we've been told, what the motive might be. But it's something that we're definitely tracking closely.
So just a couple more questions on this, Tom, and then we're going to pivot to New Orleans. What is leading authorities here to say that they're investigating a possible terror attack? Is there anything that we can kind of put our thumb on to know as to why they see that as a potential motive?
Yeah, I don't have any specifics on that just yet, or at least none that are confirmed. And so I just kind of want to stay away from, I don't want to get into a business of speculation, which I know you appreciate. I just don't want to go there with so much stuff going on today. I do think it's important to mention that this Cybertruck was apparently rented from the same rental company that the suspect in New Orleans used. But we should note, to be clear here, there's no indication law enforcement says they found of any connection between the Trump Tower incident in New Orleans. They appear to be totally separate.
Yeah, important to obviously reiterate that as we're reporting on these two simultaneous stories happening that may honestly be just a total coincidence that they're happening on the same day. Tom, let's pivot if we can. I want to talk New Orleans, and I want to talk about the suspect and what we're learning, because this also is a fast developing story. Let's talk about his military service, because we're learning more about his military service. I know that we've learned that he was honorably discharged. He served multiple years in the military. Walk us through what more we know.
Yeah, so 42 years old, as we're looking at there on screen, born in 1982, October 26 to be precise. He's a U.S. citizen from Texas, an Army veteran. They said at the press conference he was discharged honorably, pronounced dead at the scene after getting in a gunfight with law enforcement. So this whole idea of whether he acted alone or not is interesting. Specifically, Yasmin, this idea of whether or not there were other people that were involved in these two additional improvised explosive devices that we've been talking about today that were found near where this incident occurred. The highlighted image there shows what federal law enforcement says is a ISIS flag or ISIS-related flag. We noted that right away earlier today. By the way, Sayfullo Saipov, who is an individual who was convicted of the West Side Highway vehicle ramming attack, talked about putting a flag on the back of his pickup truck, also rented from a different company, also rented, but thought the NYPD would see the flag and immediately engage with him. So this is not the first time this idea has come up. But basically, we've got these two improvised explosive devices that were found outside the vehicle, found in New Orleans. There were some individuals kind of around those that were seen on surveillance video. Not clear whether or not they just observed those things and said, well, that's a little suspicious, or whether they were involved in putting them there. That's what the FBI is kind of circling.
Yeah, they're both EVs. They were both rented through Turo.
Is that he didn't act alone doesn't mean that.
But I don't know if there's any like through line here. It's just like.
We just have to keep all those things in mind.
So we know two big things that they're going to be looking at when they're learning more about this individual, right? It is the travel, if he traveled overseas at all, who he interacted with during that travel, and also his social media history, right? What he was looking into. And we know, obviously, having covered terror attacks previously, especially ISIS-inspired terror attacks, oftentimes the interactions happen online, especially with individuals that are based here in the United States. Walk us through, Tom, what we're learning as the investigation progresses as to his travel and his social media history.
Sure. So there is an indication of travel, and I've been looking down just because we've gotten so many notes and so many different things that have come through from my colleagues and I. But as far as the travel goes, there are some things that are seen over the course of his history in 2023 specifically. They're looking into possible travel that he took between Cairo, Egypt, and JFK that occurred in June of 2023, and then a week and a half later to back to JFK. That would have been on July 3rd. And then there was another trip that they're looking into, a possible trip between Atlanta and Toronto, which was a round trip that took place several days afterwards. What was that travel about? What was he up to? What was he doing in Cairo? Was he seeing the sights, or was he up to something that he shouldn't have been? Did he have further travel from there? That's something that the U.S. will certainly look at. The FBI has the ability to look at as a member of the intelligence community, but that's where the rest of the U.S. intelligence community that looks at things overseas, specifically the Central Intelligence Agency, the NSA, and other agencies can get involved with, as well as this is well within their purview. Even though he's a U.S. citizen, they could start to look at things abroad about, was he meeting with anybody who was known to them? So all sorts of things that they'll take a peek at here in the days coming forward. Hours coming forward.
How active are they, Tom? Because I know years ago they were much more active, and I'm not quite sure where they are now when it comes to monitoring kind of social media activities between some of these terrorist organizations and individuals here in the United States. I mean, how active are they in kind of online intelligence monitoring of that now?
I think you've seen this year several high-profile incidents that have been stopped as a result of aggressive investigation work that has occurred globally. And so how that specifically happens or comes together is something that law enforcement keeps to themselves, and not something that we would typically tip off somebody as to how certain things happen, whether it involves social media or some other sort of form of communication. They're in as many places as they lawfully try to be, and that's pretty much all I would be able to offer on that.
All right. Tom Winter, I know you're going to be sticking with us throughout the hour. So for now, thank you for your reporting on that. Want to bring in now Robert D'Amico, a former supervisor with the FBI and founder of Sierra One Consulting. Remember, authorities revealing earlier today that they found an ISIS flag on the rental truck used in this attack. Rob, thanks for joining us on this. I appreciate it. We have some new reporting, as I've been talking to both Tom and Ken about this, contradicting what the FBI told us initially about the suspect not necessarily acting alone. And Tom said, you know, they could go back on this. There could be a lot of back and forth on this. And this is an active investigation. And we know with these types of things, it is swift moving and things change. Where do you expect to land and how do you expect them to drill down on this?
I expect them to land, you know, with the facts. The facts as they open the case and they start looking at phones and social media. I think one of the real key ones will be if they can get into his phone, if he had a phone on him, if they can break the code to get in there to look at the encrypted apps. That's where these people are communicating. Discord, Telegram, all these encrypted apps that the government really has a
Is
blind
Discord
spot on,
encrypted? The fuck is
look at
encrypted
the
about
chats that way.
Discord?
Regular social media, not as prevalent as it was before. The encrypted apps are where they do it. So I think that will be key if they can get in there. The facts that come out. This reminds me after 9/11.
How is this guy a
when
specialist?
something happens and then all of a sudden you start connecting everything back
I'm a
to it,
fucking
like we're
boomer,
down
and
at
even
the
I
Cybertruck.
shouldn't curse.
And
I
it
am
may
a
be, like,
heckin'
you
boomer.
want to start off with it,
And even I
just
know
so if it
Discord's
does
not
have a connection,
encrypted.
that you're there and you're on top of it. And then once you can rule it out, you rule it out. Same thing with the video. I surmise that somehow they had seen this person, the deceased subject, with somebody or something that maybe tied it to him. So it turns out where a couple IEDs that were planted might have been by the dead subject were picked up with someone else there. They had to track them down to figure out that they weren't connected to this. It's really tough what you put out in a press conference, and maybe this person just wasn't, as in tune with. If you put something out like that, it really ramps things up. That you really have to monitor. You have to figure out what you're going to put out. Does it help the case or does it hurt it? So if they had a video like the Boston bombing, where they started putting it out, showing the subjects doing it, really helped the case out, that you have to weigh that back and forth.
I got to ask you, though, considering the fact that you are former FBI, you have this FBI special investigator at this press conference essentially saying they believe that, in fact, the suspect was not acting alone when our reporting is indicating otherwise. Do you feel as if that was a bit of a jump for that FBI investigator, or is it kind of, are they trying to be as cautious as possible, making sure everybody is
CNN update.
Clarification from law enforcement officials. What are you learning?
You want to be cautious.
Yeah,
Because
well,
of
for one of the
events
things
that
we have been focused on is the FBI certainly was looking at this surveillance video that at the time at least appeared to show that there were other people who may have been involved in placing devices in the French Quarter. Now we know that law enforcement now has determined that those people had nothing to do with this incident. At this point, it appears that those people seen on surveillance video did not have anything to do with placing devices in the French Quarter, that this suspect was solely responsible, certainly for the attack, at least as we know it at this point. Now, we should make clear that the FBI is still looking at possible associates. They're trying to see whether there's anybody who may have been involved in helping to create the devices, the IEDs, whether those people, anybody who might have been involved in helping to plan the attack. But at this point, at least for on the part of the surveillance video, they now believe
this is what look. It's not. I'm not even gonna say the police are like, this is just how it is, okay? This is just how it is, especially with like information spreading super fast online. In real-time news coverage, you were saying you didn't know, Law? No, I also specifically stated even verified information that comes out initially might be wrong, so don't actually get hyper invested and develop an idea of what you think happened. I know there's no donut. I took it off. Don't immediately jump to conclusions and tug on certain strings to craft like convenient narratives because of even verified information that comes out initially. Yeah. I said even verified information could be wrong. And don't jump to conclusions.
That those people had absolutely nothing to do with this actual attack that happened this morning, Wolf.
All right, important information indeed. Thanks very much, Evan, for that.
Anyway, have you gone over your predictions yet? No. I don't have. He literally said this, chat, trying to get your gotcha moment. I know. It's ironic because I just said it too. I said it like right before this information came out.
Later, as well as a possible trip a few days later between Atlanta and Toronto. I know oftentimes it is incredibly important to look at the travel of these individuals that are suspected of terrorism, oftentimes inspired by terror organizations, not unlike ISIS, this one being, in fact, ISIS, it seems. What does that say to you?
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that the Toronto trip had more relevance than the Egypt trip. This is a very painful lesson, I think, for us, because, initially when this incident happened, I think a lot of people jumped to the conclusion that this person was a foreign national, was a legal migrant, something like that. This person was an American. He was born in the United States. He was a U.S. military serviceman. And unfortunately, he fits exactly the profile of the kind of people that are being recruited by groups like ISIS right now. There is this trope about terrorism that is the other, is the foreigners, it is someone else. But in fact, these groups are able to recruit people from directly inside the United States. This person appears to be radicalized, from what we can tell, at least so far, this person appears to be radicalized inside the United States, right? So any trip to Egypt or whatnot, there's no telling whether it's actually relevant or not. Probably not, right? Most of these folks that do this, they're not going overseas to terrorist training camps in foreign countries. They're learning everything they need to do off the internet. Right. Yeah. And it's very easy because there are terrorist training manuals that are put out by ISIS in English. You don't need to speak Arabic. You don't need to speak Urdu or Farsi or whatever. You can speak English. And it's very clear about what to do. It tells you to get in a car,
he's not wrong. He's right.
Ram people and kill them, exactly as this person did. So, I hate to say it, but you didn't need to travel to any country outside the United States to do what this person did. And, again, he fits the exact profile of a standard ISIS lone wolf recruit. I think we also have to be careful here about importing what this means about ISIS in general. I think the general reporting has been correct in the last few years that the threat from ISIS has somewhat subsided. The group has been under tremendous amounts of pressure. It has, really suffered a lot of losses, including just recently, several senior leaders of the group were killed. A huge training camp was wiped out in Syria. This group is definitely on the ropes, but that does not mean that they are unable to recruit individual people here or there who may be disturbed on their own. And if you look at the background of this particular individual, there's reason to believe that this person had problems that go far beyond just terrorism. And this person has multiple different possible domestic violence reports against him. This is someone who had personal problems as well. So I think that's another thing.
So none of that, by the way, we have confirmed, and I want to be clear with that. When you talk about domestic violence, those are things, obviously, that you are learning that we here at NBC News have not confirmed. But what we have confirmed is the fact that he actually served in the U.S. Army. He was active duty from 2006 to 2015 for 9 years. He was deployed in Afghanistan in 2009. He served for the Army Reserves for 5 years as well, honorably discharged, as I mentioned, as a staff sergeant. How do you go from that to extremist who plows down 10 plus individuals, killing them, injuring 30 plus as well in New Orleans on New Year's Day?
I think that's a very important question because, again, ISIS did just come up yesterday. ISIS, the highlight of ISIS, the big time of ISIS was almost 10 years ago, right? Why didn't he try to do something back then? And then the question is, well, maybe he wasn't radicalized back then. Something happened between now and then, and maybe it had nothing to do with ISIS. Maybe it had to do something with this individual particularly, individually, personally. Again, you have to look at a variety of different motivations when it comes to these folks. It's not always just politics. Sometimes there's personal turmoil, there's other events. And again, it's remarkable, but if you look at what happened at Fort Hood, You know, that what was that, like 15 years ago, 16 years ago? Same exact thing, a U.S. military serviceman, someone that had been in the military for quite some time. This tends to happen. It is not, unfortunately, as unique as we might wish or we might think. And again, it's a very painful lesson that if we look to people coming across the U.S. border as being evil or being terrorists, sometimes we miss the most obvious suspects who are right here inside U.S. borders already.
Evan Coleman, if you will, stand by for me. With these details still pouring in minute to minute, the country's leaders, they are reacting, vowing to track down any co-conspirators. And some are making it political. I want to go to senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez to talk more about this. Let's talk first about the reaction that we are getting from President Biden, along with President-elect Donald Trump. Gabe.
Hi there, Yasmin. Well, yes, we've heard throughout the day from both President Biden and President-elect Trump. Not on camera from Trump, very briefly on camera from President Biden. Let's start with President Biden. He began the day in Wilmington, Delaware, and then he headed to Camp David. As he was boarding Air Force One, he briefly spoke with reporters, was asked several times about the origins of the suspect at the time and any details he knew about the investigation. He declined to comment, as the White House typically does at this early stage in the investigation. He did say his reaction was one of anger and frustration, but President Biden also said that he would be eager to talk more about this in a short time, presumably after he spoke more with some of his senior officials and we learned more information. But still, at this late hour now, we have not had any confirmation on any schedule change from the White House or whether President Biden may come out and address the cameras again. So right now, he's at Camp David, and we're waiting to hear whether he might speak out about this. As for President-elect Trump, he's here in South Florida. He spent much of the day at his International Golf Club here in Palm Beach County. We did hear from him earlier today in a social media post where he said several things about thanking the law enforcement officers that responded from the New Orleans Police Department. He also said that our hearts are with all of the innocent victims. Earlier in the post, he also talked about the crime rate in our country is at a level that no one has ever seen before. I will point out, Yasmin, that according to FBI statistics, that's incorrect. From 2022 to 2023, the violent crime rate in this country overall actually declined, although it did go up in certain cities, but overall it did decline. Now, President-elect Trump also saying that in his administration, he would pledge all support that he could to the city of New Orleans. But again, we're right now awaiting word from the White House on whether President Biden may speak once again. We do know that he has spent the day being briefed by top officials at the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. And he has been briefed with them, and he also been briefed by them, but he also spoke with the mayor of New Orleans and pledged full federal.
It's like crazy because they literally are so one note on one narrative that they failed to recognize that this is another comfortable narrative that they can also rely on, which is Islamic radicalization and crime. But because they're so hyper-focused on undocumented migrants, they just ended up cooking their propaganda opportunity when it first came out.
In New Orleans,
they blew their load on undocumented migrants when they could have just been like, this is classic Islam.
For 9 years, served in the Army Reserves for 5 years as well. We are 19 days away from President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration in Washington, D.C. for his second term. What are the expectations as to how he's going to address this?
Well, certainly, look, it's a question and an issue that Donald Trump has really focused on since the beginning of his political career, that of immigration. That was a posting on social media that he made much earlier in the day. At that time, with all this fast-moving information, there had been some reporting on other outlets potentially about a truck that this suspect may have been driving and whether it may have been near the Texas border. And so that led the president-elect to assume that potentially this suspect may have been from outside the country.
That is an insane way to defend Donald Trump, by the way. This is manufacturing normalcy. Just, what do you mean? Oh, he's always been upset. He's always been very worried about immigration. No, he's a racist motherfucker. 2, well, the truck had Texas license plates, and maybe he saw that the truck was in Eagle Pass previously. Dude, what are you doing? Why are you defending him? Virtually everything he said is wrong. Why the fuck would you try to like normalize why he came up with that when you know why he came up with that narrative?
Early on. Again, though, we have not heard from the president-elect for several hours, though, and we're waiting to see if he has any additional comments now that the FBI has put out more information.
And again, waiting to hear if we're going to be seeing and/or hearing publicly from the president this evening. Gabe Gutierrez, for now, thank you. We are learning more about the terrifying moments on the ground during and after the deadly attack on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Take a listen to these witnesses recounting what they saw there and wondering how this happened at all.
It was very, very loud. I mean, it just was this huge boom.
Crunching
and crunch. Yeah. And then just the people yelling.
And you guys had just walked right across the street. Where were you guys at?
We had come from about 2 blocks down from a parking garage, the Roosevelt parking garage, and we're coming through this intersection right here on Bourbon. When it happened.
From what I recall, he was in this lane and just took a hard right and punched it, is what it seemed to be like. So I don't know how he did it because there were all the cars. It was literally 3 or 4. I mean, it's 3 lane, but there was also people parked over on the side. So I mean, it was just hectic and chaotic. I don't know how he was able to get through the barricade or whatever, get enough speed.
And there is multiple pedicab drivers and carts there. And fortunately, one of the girls that he hit her cart, she didn't have passengers, but it was the other gentleman who had passengers. That's what he hit, and they were just all on the ground. I mean,
I was just going to say, so you guys saw this happen. What did you guys do next?
It was kind of like a surreal moment, and my husband, he just grabbed me and he was like, let's go, let's go, get out, let's get out of here. It was so surreal, I think we did kind of go into that fight or flight mode and chose flight in that instance, to get ourselves out of here and safe.
I mean, your hotel
is right here. Yeah.
Right there.
Yep. And then our room, we looked directly out onto the street, so we kind of watched the aftermath and everything unfold.
And blood in the street.
Yeah, the blood, and to see the coroners, because we didn't know how bad, how bad it actually was.
Didn't know how many people.
Or to know that this guy had such ill intent, malicious, just awful intent to hurt innocent people is just, unfathomable.
The attacker died after the wreck. It's not the wreck that killed him. He got out of the car and started shooting, and the cops killed him.
The ambulance is coming in knowing to go, that they have to go get bodies out of the French Quarter.
It is the emotions of the people that were there, witnesses, thankful that they survived that tragedy that they saw on Bourbon Street, but obviously having to live with what they saw and heard just a few hours ago after so many people died this morning in the early hours of 2025. I want to bring in Jesse Kirsch, who's on the ground for us in New Orleans as well, to kind of talk about all the people that are there right now and really some of the security lapses that took place possibly in preparation for the Super Bowl that's going to be happening there next month. Let's walk through the Sugar Bowl, which we now know has been delayed, Jesse, for 24 hours. And some of what seems to be the construction that was happening, the repair that was happening to some of these barricades that were there to keep folks safe.
Yeah, so Yasmin, let's start with the Sugar Bowl latest. So initially they said postponement of 24 hours, but we now know they've actually slid that timeline up a little bit. So the game is scheduled to be played now, we're told, at 4 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So about 20 hours, 19 and a half hours, somewhere in that range, if my math is correct. So they are doubling down, if you will, on the game being played tomorrow, moving the timeline up even a little bit. I'm gonna have our photographer pan over here. You can see all those barriers along the sidewalk. They appear to be made of concrete, something like that, very, very solid, the kind of thing you'd want trying to protect from a car. If you look at the ones that have a yellow strip across the top,
yeah,
those have been added several
Dog, after 9/11, George W. Bush came out with a statement saying that it was patriotic to go out and shop and live your life at a time when there was unimaginable panic and like getting around in large gatherings because people thought any large gathering could be 9/11 style bombed. That like it was a patriotic thing. George W. Bush said it was patriotic to go out and shop, to go out and watch movies. More evidence. Military records show the pickup driver who killed at least 15 in New Orleans, Shamsuddin Bahar Jabbar, was in the U.S. Army from 2007 to 2015 and the Army Reserve from 2015 to 2020. He deployed to Afghanistan 2009 to 2010. Miss Taylor, thank you for the 10 gifted subs.
Pieces, those bollards, those security elements, and authorities tell us that those bollards were down as they were being replaced. But in place of the bollards, we're told for New Year's Eve, there were police vehicles, police officers stationed to create, a security presence in place of the missing bollards. But what authorities also told us is that there was not any number of bollards on the sidewalk itself. And the distinction to be made there is because, and I don't know if you've shown this video yet in this hour, I apologize if you have, but if you're able to cue it up, the video of the truck turning onto Bourbon Street. This is what police say, is that they had a plan and this suspect was able to get around it. That is what police have told us. When you watch the video, you can see how easily this truck was able to just make a little bit of a pivot around the police vehicle and get up on the sidewalk. Theoretically, bollards could have made a difference there. I'm not saying definitively they would have, but they were not there, and they are not normally there. So those weren't even pieces that were being repaired, and they forgot, for example, potentially to replace them with something. We're told that was not something they had accounted for. And I think that's a head scratcher, Yasmin, because, we work in a building that has bollards around a plaza, right? There are bollards on sidewalks in cities all over the country. And the fact that you were worried about the street itself, but hadn't considered the possibility of needing them on the sidewalk, I think leaves some needing of an explanation, which we have not gotten yet.
Well, it's interesting because when you're on Bourbon Street, if, for instance, if you're going for Mardi Gras or whatever time it is that you're visiting, oftentimes, which you, I'm sure, well know, folks are walking up and down the streets. They're on the sidewalks. I mean, pedestrians are really everywhere, kind of taking place in the celebrations that are happening. So it's understandable as to why they would also want to protect the area in which cars are moving up and down. But we were actually showing the video, Jesse, while you were talking about it. And it's an interesting note that you say that despite the fact that they say bollards could have, in fact, protected those individuals as that truck made that right turn, it seems, on to Bourbon Street, that they actually weren't even supposed to be there. So there was never even a plan, from what I'm hearing from you, that they were even ever going to be there, despite the fact that they very well could have protected folks from getting hurt.
Yeah, the one Chatter's right. The one
course,
time a cop doesn't fucking
Yeah.
park on a goddamn sidewalk. The one time the cops are like, "Oh, I shouldn't park on the sidewalk. There's a lot of foot traffic," and look what happens.
Street. I think it raises the question of why you didn't have it on the sidewalks as well. And I had asked authorities earlier today if this is something they thought was just impossible, would never happen, or just something they hadn't accounted for.
That they thought it was
And the police
impossible.
said
It
that
has literally
wasn't
happened
something,
before.
They were accounting for potentially happening. It wasn't something they thought would be happening. And I think it leaves, again, wanting for more explanation as to whether it was something that was debated and they ultimately decided they didn't need it, or if it wasn't even considered. And authorities at this point, have a lot of outstanding questions to answer. And what we got from that press conference today was they didn't want to get into investigative details because they're in the midst of the investigation, don't want it to jeopardize the investigation. We hear that all the time, and there's certainly merit to that, in many instances. Of investigating when things happen. But there were also multiple more questions about that and an acknowledgement from authorities that there may be deficiencies that they're going to improve upon, but they also didn't specify exactly how they're going to improve upon them. And they also didn't specify at the press conference what makes them confident that they can host a game here tomorrow safely. I did speak with a member of City Council after that press conference. She was present at the press conference, didn't speak there, and I asked her, I said, does she think that it is safe to have a football game here this week? And she said, There's so many resources that have been flooded in here to support this city that they can have a safe game. So you can imagine there's just a lot more of a law enforcement presence, it would seem. Certainly the FBI is leading that investigation. Federal partners, I saw a DHS vehicle, Department of Homeland Security vehicle out here earlier, seeing that they have added more barriers today. And of course, they're just, on alert, and you'd think the fans are that much more alert in light of what happened. But, I think it's still not exactly clear what they have found to make them feel, exactly confident about moving forward tomorrow. But they have.
What's ridiculous is people in this chat will laugh about this. What are you talking about, dude?
Slowing down the pace. They're speeding up the pace of trying to return to.
Like, why are you fantasizing about a community that's like supposedly laughing about this shit? Like, they're not. No one is laughing about this. This is a fucking heinous tragedy. What are you talking about? A heinous crime. What the fuck is funny?
In New Orleans. As we mentioned earlier, the number had previously been 10. We now have confirmation that number has gone up to 12 individuals who lost their life in the early hours of 2025 in that truck ramming.
The only ironic aspects of this is, like, obviously immediately hitting the most impactful part of this, which is, how will this hurt football? Like, they literally were just like, oh, but we also have a massive event coming up, and it's football, and this is football country. We got to do football. And they're literally going with it. They're going forward with it. They're like, yeah, no, it's fine. We still have football. They were going to delay it, and then they're like, we can't delay it. We're actually going to make it even earlier. The ironic parts of this that lend itself to satire would be police incompetence and the interest in. That's not funny. No, that is not funny. It's gallows humor. It is how fucking shitty our lives are in general. It's not like haha funny. It's more like, holy shit, what do you do in this situation? Anyway, we're not doing that any longer. I'm not explaining jokes in 2025 as much.
The areas in which this individual, the suspect, attacked. I can't help but think back to the Bataclan attack in Paris, in which many individuals lost their lives that day, and they went after soft targets, right? We have known for a long time these types of individuals go for soft targets because that is when people are most vulnerable. Talk to me first about your reaction to what you heard.
Okay, let's cover the CNN update. Apparently, according to CNN source, Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas involved explosives that include fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel. Authorities believe that it was connected to a detonation system controlled by the driver.
That source also revealed what was inside the truck, explosives that included fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel, and authorities believe that that was connected to a detonation system controlled by the driver. We're also hearing this same sentiment from Elon Musk, who tweeted out that they have now confirmed that the explosion was caused by very large fireworks and or a bomb carried in the bed of the rented Cybertruck and is unrelated to the vehicle itself. So he was clear to say that this was not an issue with the Cybertruck. And the sheriff also earlier said that they are checking for secondary devices. They're investigating many different leads, but he was clear to say that there does not appear to be any further threat to the Las Vegas community. That source also revealed what was inside the truck, explosives that included fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel, and authorities believe that that was connected to a detonation system controlled by the driver. We're also hearing this same sentiment from Elon Musk, who tweeted out that they have now confirmed that the explosion was caused by very large fireworks and or a bomb carried in the bed of the rented Cybertruck and is unrelated to the vehicle itself. So he was clear to say that this was not an issue with the Cybertruck. And the sheriff also earlier said that they are checking for secondary devices. They're investigating many different leads, but he was clear to say that there does not appear to be any further threat to the Las Vegas community. That source also revealed.
Dude, what a fucking way to start the new year. Like, it's actually insane. We're so fucking cooked. We're so goddamn cooked. America's already supercharged into overreacting to shit that doesn't deserve a reaction at all. These are things that do deserve a reaction. So people are going to somehow figure out a way to even lose their minds further. All of this happening right as the Trump admin is coming into power makes things even scarier. Fox reading after reading statement from Trump, the former president said criminals coming in his statement meaning into our country. To be clear, the suspect was born in the United States. He served in the United States Army. He was a veteran.
Donald Trump put out a statement on social media earlier today that reads as follows. When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen before. Our hearts are with all the innocent victims and their loved ones, including the brave officers of the New Orleans Police Department. The Trump administration will fully support the city of New Orleans as they investigate and recover from this act of pure evil. Now, the former president said criminals coming in his statement, meaning into our country. But to be clear, Molly and Brian, the suspect was born in the United States. He served in the United States Army. He was a veteran. The FBI is the lead agency in this investigation, going through the social media and any other accounts associated with the suspect. But that President-elect Donald Trump put out a statement on social media earlier today.
It's daytime, Fox, yes. Also, Trump has a unique opportunity to double down and say, I don't care. He was undocumented in my heart. And then Fox will have to defend him.
You're going to open the doors to let the public in. At that point, they go.
The very fact that that's actually something that could happen is so damning. Like, he did it. He did it with Obama, with a birth certificate. He did it with he did it with Obama with the birth certificate shit. He did it with the cats and dogs, like Haitians are eating cats and dogs shit. He just like double down, triple down. There was no punishment for it. He won the fucking election afterwards.
Might be the case as well.
A couple things I want to tick through here, because we are getting now confirmation and an adjustment from the FBI in which they are now saying, Evie, that 15 people have now died from the attack in New Orleans. So initially that number had been 10 in the early hours of today. That number went up to 12 just a couple of minutes ago. They have adjusted that number to now being 15 individuals who have lost their lives to this horrific terror attack on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. And as we now know, also double-digit multiple people also still in the hospital being treated for their injuries as well. The other thing, Evie, that you touched upon that I think is important to be clear on is whether or not this was a lone actor or someone who worked in coordination with other individuals. As we heard from the press conference a couple of hours ago, in fact, they mentioned that there was a possibility he may have, in fact, worked with other individuals, asking the public for help had they had any interaction with this individual, this suspect, in the last few days or so, to please reach out to
10, and at least 6 were instantly, clearly deceased. And they were trying to get everybody just to stay inside, but everyone had just completely disappeared.
City and federal officials are saying the suspect drove around police barricades that were set up to try to stop a vehicle from barreling down that street. Officials saying the suspect was, quote, hell-bent on killing as many people as possible. And according to law enforcement officials, that suspect was also allegedly firing a gun as he drove through that crowd. He was shot and killed then by police when he got out of his vehicle with an assault rifle, officials have said. At least 2 officers were wounded while engaging that suspect, and the FBI is now investigating this as an act of terrorism. And at this hour, we're also learning that the FBI says it found what can be described as improvised explosive devices.
Look, why is that's the cop
the
car? That's why. Okay, I was like, I didn't understand at first because I think people are posting the photo of this pickup being like, there is no flag in this pickup, but I think that's the cop pickup.
That attack, multiple law enforcement. enforcement officials telling ABC News that those devices that were found at the scene are apparently viable explosive devices. We want to kick things off here with ABC News senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky, who's got the latest for us. Aaron?
It looks like the suspect struck in still images. I'm telling you not to get duped.
The suspicion that there may be additional suspects came from surveillance footage that appeared to show individuals, multiple individuals, planting what could be explosive devices in the French Quarter. That is why, in part, the FBI said there could be a range of suspects beyond the one found deceased at the scene responsible for the vehicle ramming itself. Authorities ran down some of the individuals that were seen in that footage and ran down some of the objects seen in that footage and determined that they may have been innocent bystanders. But there is still a concern based on social media and other evidence that authorities are gathering that there could be additional suspects as part of this. They've been interviewing.
I'm telling you, it could possibly be. Oh, they went to his house. Jesus Christ. If he's ISIS aligned, that we should call it what it is. Another case of domestic right-wing extremism in the U.S. Yeah, good luck. No one will see it that way. But this guy is one of the suspected. It's a possible suspect that they let go basically because they realized they had nothing to do with the attack.
For starters, it's an absolute key that you find those people because they are the loose link. Maybe there's others, but at least that they are a loose link as to where this case is going and what is their intentions. If you're willing to drop IEDs in a urban area after a guy has just car rammed it, I mean, you are a dangerous person. And are they moving on to another location? Is there somebody else involved? And again, we don't know enough about the suspect. Maybe the FBI and New Orleans police do. You know, what are the circumstances around this event? In other words, who did he talk to? Why did he come to New Orleans? This was coordinated with more people than him. Maybe only he and these other X number of people came to New Orleans, but there's just another component to this, or it feels like there is, that the FBI has to get their arms around because nothing is going to feel safe until you know the answers of these other associates, whether they be in New Orleans or someplace else.
And Bob, I want to pick up there with you because we know that this individual was from Houston, Texas. We know that there is an ongoing FBI investigation that's happening right now as we speak at a location in Houston, Texas that the FBI field office there says is associated with this New Orleans investigation. We don't know the nature of that investigation. All we know is that it's associated with what's going on in New Orleans, again, according to the FBI. We also know the background of this individual, a U.S. Army veteran who had served overseas in Afghanistan for a time in non-combat roles. He was in human resources and IT for the Army and then for the Army Reserve as well. How much of this investigation hinges on the suspect's background, and how do you put together that background?
Sure, you're going to look for deployments, see if he's deployed abroad in any fashion to the Mideast. Apparently, he was not. Here's the thing, Jay. You take that plate, you take what you have at a crime scene, and you run with it in different directions, of course, but considering what you have. So you have a plate, a Texas plate, and you're going to go back to your plate readers all the way to Texas and see if you can follow this individual and create a timeline to see who he spoke with. You're going to see if he also has a phone. You're going to get search warrants for his home and any devices he may have, and see what that shows you. Who's the last person he talked to on the phone before he did this? It's really important just to put that all in place, to find any co-conspirators, if there are some, and how he put those bombs, IEDs together. These pipe bombs are not hard to do. You can go online and figure them out. Unfortunately, you can. And so did he do that? How long was he planning this? His credit cards, where did he buy these things? This is a really intense investigation. However, for the time being, who else is involved, and that's the key point.
Brad, the method of this attack, a vehicle used as the primary weapon, although the suspect was also shooting out of the vehicle as he drove down Bourbon Street, but a vehicle used as the primary weapon. Pipe bombs created, as our Aaron Katersky has reported, appearing to be built to inflict the most damage. The weapons that were used here, what does that say to you about the suspect and his motive?
That clearly this is driven by some outfit probably like ISIS. I mean, this is what ISIS teaches lone actors to do. Use cars, use guns, use explosives. He used all three. But Jay, anyone that can get to the place in their life where they're willing to just literally drive over people, shoot them, and then blow them up, clearly has dehumanized everyone that doesn't believe whatever his beliefs are. I mean, unless you're completely insane, and I'm going to guess he wasn't, that's what you have here. And so that then becomes the problem in stopping these, and that's why we've talked a lot today about preventing the ability to do this. Obviously, he figured out a way around it. It's a security flaw that everyone agrees with today. But the point being, that's what you have here. And that's why these lone actors are so dangerous, because if you don't know about the tentacles that are around him, and we don't know what those are, in other words, other players, other associates, maybe other weapons, how'd you build the bike pumps, all that stuff, it really creates a desperateness and a safety issue for, nothing else, events that are coming up in the next day or two.
Bob, as the former NYPD chief of detectives, someone who has had to protect a major American city, it would seem to me that New Orleans has two challenges at this hour. One is, of course, this ongoing urgent investigation and determining if this suspect was working with anyone who is still in the city of New Orleans, which, again, we do not know the answer to at this hour, although the FBI has said they do not believe he acted alone, whatever that means in terms of this investigation. And then the other challenge is that they've got the Sugar Bowl, which has been rescheduled now until tomorrow. They've got the Super Bowl in February, and it comes at a time where this country has had a heightened threat environment. What do they need to do in order to secure those two massive events?
Sure. So the investigation itself is under the purview of the FBI, and they're in support of the FBI at this point. But they have to target hard their city. They went out of the way to state how safe the city is right now, and how safe it's going to be the Super Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, which is tomorrow afternoon, from what I understand. So there'll be some serious target hardening there. Much more clamped down to what we saw last night. Those bollards that were ineffective, and the fact that they didn't have anything on the sidewalk will change on Bourbon Street. I can guarantee you that if they open up the Bourbon Street for the Super Bowl, and I'm sure they will. It's an economic driver. So these are the things they have to do: restore public trust and understand that they can defend the city. And I think they can. They just got caught out of nowhere with this sidewalk issue. Was let them do this. These lone wolves and these terrorist things, they come out of nowhere, and a lot of times you don't see them coming. This particular individual, 42 years old, he was on the old side for a terrorist, but he'd be perfectly honest. And his resources, how were they met? What was he doing for a living? Who was supporting this? And what put him on this road to radicalization? That has to be figured out. But right now, New Orleans has to get public trust back so they can protect the city.
Yeah, Bob, I want to drill down on that sidewalk thing, because to our viewers, what Bob is referring to is the fact that according to New Orleans police, they had a police vehicle that was parked at the entrance to Bourbon Street, meaning that you couldn't drive a car down the street unless you were to hit that police vehicle.
Chatter's talking about ballers on Bourbon Street. There's apparently there aren't ballers on the sidewalk.
And then onto the street. It's grisly, but I guess my question to you is, Bob, what do you make of that? Is that a security failure that sidewalk is not blocked in a similar way that the street was?
Sure, and you could certainly, and I think the chief said that it was a security lapse. They should have had something there. Now, you could put a concrete block there, a concrete planter. There's all kinds of things you could do at that location to target hard edge so that doesn't happen. We had something, Jay, very similar to this in 2017. A terrorist attack on the West Side Highway and another attack in Times Square, in both that same year. The city investigated heavily in its infrastructure on security, putting those bollards in.
Bro, Suspect in New Orleans terror attack made a series of video recordings while driving from Texas to Louisiana. In the videos, the suspect says he first planned to gather his family with the intention of killing them, but then decided to join ISIS instead. Dude, come on. Bro, this is like the fucking loony bin. We have a serious and very severe mental health crisis in this country. Oftentimes the trigger point being material issues, but also family court, okay? We have to study the minds of people who have literally considered themselves victim to family court. We have to shut down family court until we figure out what the hell is going on. Okay? Okay, but how the fuck did the FBI miss this guy? The way the FBI misses this guy is because the FBI is not the guy talking to him. Normally, if you're talking to an ISIS guy online, okay, you're most likely talking to an FBI guy. Especially when they start telling you like, oh, my friend, you know, put down the chicken breast and join the jihad, bro. There's some Tenorite that I can let you purchase. Here's some Tenorite that I left at this coordinate. Please go pick it up. It would be sick if you used it to blow shit up. And then you go to pick up the Tenorite, and the FBI stops you, and then they go, we've apprehended a terror attack. That's usually how it works. Okay? Yeah, put down the chicken wings and join the jihad, bro. It's just crazy that like he was like, oh, dude, on the one hand, I could just kill my entire family because I'm fucking insane. On the other hand, I can join global jihad. It's like, those are the options, dude. How about the third option of not doing any of that? There is other options out there. It's called not doing any of that. I just... What a fucking insane motive. Here we go. I'm going to teach white people how ISIS is more aligned with Israel than they are of any Islamic group. Shaking my head. I know. Yeah, I mean, the more you find out about this dude's profile and background, the more you realize that maybe divorce court was it is insane, almost like it was made up. I mean, if there's video, you'll see it. Like, it's from CNN. Even 9/11 had more motive than this fucking freak. Yeah, I mean, dude, first of all, the guy was just like, you know what? Either I do serial killing on my family or I join ISIS. Like, that's a psychotic, thing. Like, it just doesn't, I don't think his heart was in it at all for the ISIS shit. Not that it fucking matters. It's obviously he was an incredibly psychotic, violent individual. I just don't understand how the timeline doesn't make sense. The timeline doesn't make sense at all. Like, what, he radicalized and quote unquote joined ISIS? Like, he said the Shahada on the way from fucking Texas to Louisiana a week prior? Like, that's not how this works. You know what I mean? That seems weird as fuck. That seems incredibly fishy, and I'm going to be, again, very charitable and say that this is most likely a misunderstanding. If he was radicalized and joined ISIS, he probably did it way before he just decided to travel from Texas by EV to Louisiana, which is also weird. Like, this dude utilized a Turo rental truck. And I get why he would use an EV for the attack, because like it has massive pickup speed and it's very heavy. Okay. But how the heck did he use an EV to go from Texas to Louisiana? How many points did he have to stop at? That's like maximum 250 miles. Every 250 miles he has to stop and recharge for the past couple of hours, you know, just like sit there. He'd been planning this and driving for 4 years. Oh, wait, what? That's where the videos are from? Okay, that makes a little bit more sense than with the ISIS, he joined ISIS thing. You know what I mean? Like if he has like 4 years worth of videos that he shot, but that still doesn't make sense, because in 2021 he was still very much online. After 2 to 3 years of no online presence, he goes to this, suddenly converting in a few months and posting on his way after years of online silence, mandatory mental health checkup for veterans. Here, this is the CNN reporting on this once again. Suspect in New Orleans attack made series of recordings before Wednesday's attack. Officials say suspect in New Orleans made a series of video recordings before Wednesday morning that law enforcement are currently reviewing, according to multiple officials briefed on the investigation. The recordings appear to have been made driving at night. The suspect is not visible because it's dark, but authorities believe the recordings were made as he drove from Texas to Louisiana, although the exact timing is not yet clear. In the recordings, the suspect makes reference to his divorce and how he had first planned to gather his family for a celebration with the intention of killing them. Two officials who had been briefed on the material in the recording said the suspect also talked about how he had changed his plans and said that he joined ISIS. He referenced several dreams that he had about why he should be joining ISIS. What the hell? I just don't. I mean, dude, they have so much. They had so much security. How the heck did they, in spite of all of the security, how did he like get through? That's what's crazy. They spent so much money talking about how much protection they have. I mean, in the media, they covered it. They covered it extensively. They're like, oh, we love, our police state is intact. We're doing round the clock surveillance. Meanwhile, some divorced guy is like, I love ISIS now. I'm going to do a terror attack. He rents out an electric vehicle pickup truck, Ford F-150 Lightning, which has a very limited range in comparison to a gas-powered vehicle that you could just kind of very quickly refill. Guy is like, I'm a victim of divorce court. I'm a victim of family court. And I have two options, like mass murder my family or ISIS. And I think I'm choosing ISIS. It's so insane. I know why he would use an EV, because it does more damage. I know. And it's quiet. And also on top of that, it has incredible acceleration.
A very normal, well-spoken person. So something happened here, and we have not really heard much about.
Something happened. The something is family court. But how did the ISIS stuff play a role in his life? That's what I don't understand.
This horrific attack.
All right, Ken Delanian, for now, I'm going to ask you to stand by. Once again, my friend, I know you're going to be following all the developments for us.
It's obvious that something happened here is probably family court.
For just a moment, we have multiple law enforcement sources.
But how do you go from family court victim to ISIS guy?
Outside of the Trump International Hotel in Vegas.
He is very well spoken. He doesn't look like he's an insane guy who's going to do something insane. In the videos that you saw,
at least one person,
dude, his background,
7 others have been injured. I want to bring in Emily.
Okay, listen to me. His background and the media, the social media footprint he has is not consistent with like a loner psycho, okay? Like even when you look at Stephen Paddock, there's a lot that's like weird with his background. You know what I mean? He's a serial gambler. One might even call a professional gambler, all this stuff. or any number of different like white supremacist shooters, they're always like loners, weirdos. They don't have their shit together. There's no place where you can like look to the background of a guy like this. And I have yet to see anything, with I guess the exception of these potential self-taped recordings that CNN claims is out there, but you can't really see him. I don't see anything in his background that makes sense at all. Like even with Luigi Mangione, right? Luigi Mangione is unique in the sense that his background does not fit the profile of someone who go out and do a murder, right? At all, which is why it broke a lot of people's brains. Having said that, however, there is obviously a through line. There is obviously a point of radicalization for Luigi Mangione, allegedly in this alleged murder that he allegedly committed, even though we think he didn't. Okay, there is a motive that you can attribute to the suspect, a point of radicalization that you can point to within this suspect's history. With this guy, it's literally normal guy, veteran, military guy, has like YouTube videos about how he's a real estate guy who will help you out. All of it is like normal. And then out of nowhere, it's like ISIS. How did that happen? I need to understand how that happened. And I think one thing that you could point to is obviously the divorce. Elon said Turo is sussy. Yeah, that's the reason why he's saying Turo is sussy, is because he wants to shift the attention away from any kind of Cybertruck related incident being brought back to Cybertruck. He already has enough issues with Cybertruck, whether it be major recalls, whether it be the fact that they are they've lost value tremendously and people just don't want them because there's a litany of different issues, complications with Cybertrucks. He just wants no additional bad PR on Tesla products, but especially Cybertrucks. He's getting it regardless. I suspect that's the reason why he's like, oh, look away from the Cybertruck. Anyway, the other part of the problem with ISIS is that what the hell is ISIS at this point? Even at its peak, in its inception, we know what ISIS is, okay? A State Department project to a certain degree. We know what has happened to ISIS throughout time by way of American allies in the region, okay? The guy, ISIS and Al-Qaeda both, obviously remnants of American, British colonial interests in the region, okay? The point of radicalization still comes back to the CIA. What's really interesting, however, is that Syria is now being run by a former Al-Qaeda guy. So clearly, it's not like ISIS is what it once was, and even when it was at its peak, it was still very much directly linked back to the American State Department. But right now, there is no real ISIS. There's ISIS-K, I guess, but that's it. Grasping at straws? You're grasping for air? Wait, what do you mean I'm grasping at straws? And as far as I understand, like there can be numerous points of radicalization, and a guy that like somehow found ISIS material online, but like, what is ISIS? It's not like ISIS is popping right now. Does that make sense? There is no unifying factor for ISIS. Where is the ISIS? That's why it's like so weird. That's what makes this extra weird. That this is not exactly a pivotal moment for ISIS activity where like they're not even like a dormant movement. It is almost entirely fallen apart, with I guess like some maybe some operations in Africa. There are I guess some remnants of the movement, with the exception of like ISIS-K. There is a little bit of there's some initiatives in Syria, but I just don't know. There's an entire state in the Middle East run by ISIS. Okay, excuse me, sir. What you mean is HTS, which is not ISIS, but Al Qaeda, and also former. Okay, they went woke. They did DE-ISIS. So very different. But even then, like, okay, you can turn around and say, the former Al Qaeda movement that is now running the Syrian state. What the fuck would they do an American terror attack, dude? Even if they were somehow linked, which I'm not saying they are. They probably aren't. Why would they? Yeah, why would Al Jelani, now Jelonsky, turn around and be like, oh, by the way, I shaved pieces of my beard. I wear a suit now. And I read Darem Acemoglu's copy of How Nations Fail, and now have a profound ability to understand that institutional legitimacy is one of the most important aspects of good governance. But also, we're going to do a fucking random New Year's Eve terror attack? Like, what are you, crazy? That makes no sense. Why would they mess up the bag when they have the bag? Yeah, ISIS hasn't claimed the attack because there's nobody to claim it. Me when the terrorist org does a terrorism. Anyway, let's see.
Before he ends his presidency, his first term as president of the United States, mere 2.5 weeks away from walking away from the White House. And Gabe, certainly it is a tough way to end his administration, I imagine.
Yeah, certainly. Look, the last several weeks have been difficult for President.
This dude probably just found some wacko stuff online, pretended to be ISIS, got duped. Okay, but the wacko stuff online pretending to be ISIS is 100% of the time federal agents trying to entrap someone that they can, one, initially radicalize, and then two, give logistical support to, and three, apprehend before the deed is done so they can actually turn around and say, we did it. We did it again. The surveillance state is supreme. That's usually how it goes. So either it was one of those guys, but then they couldn't stop him, or it was not one of those guys at all. You know what I mean? And for the record, if you're confused about what I'm saying, the FBI especially has a long track record in the post 9/11 universe of routinely entrapping and finding intellectually disabled teenagers online, many of which of Muslim background, and then radicalizing them, and then giving them pointing them in the direction of weapons or explosive material only to stop them. Is a honeypot scheme. Anyway, Biden will be delivering a statement shortly. How's that not entrapment? You can do that if it's happening during the war on terror. If it's happening during the war on terror, you can do that. They let you do it.
Tom, what's the status of things now?
I mean, they even there were numerous instances where like the FBI and numerous intelligence agencies certainly put their hand on the scale a little bit with even white supremacist acts of domestic terror. Not that they needed to do that, because there's plenty of operational white supremacist terror cells in this country.
He drove for 3 blocks, Lester. Imagine this, 3 a.m.
Images show police outside an address which you believe to belong to the New Orleans attack suspect.
Killed at least 15 people so far. That number is
Okay, hold
of
on.
a property. You're watching Sky News, taking you straight to Texas. These are live helicopter shots of a property in Houston, which is believed to be the suspect's address in that terrible carnage in New Orleans.
Leave it to a certain peaceful religion. I mean, this is also the other reason, right? This is also the other reason. This kind of stuff works really well for a lot of guys who, yeah, say stuff like the Draw Muhammad contest. Like people who are go, oh, certain peaceful religion. It's like, dude, in 2025, if you still think that people are like doing acts of violence because of religion, I don't know what to tell you. I suspect that you don't feel that same way about Israel, right? Which you shouldn't, because Israel's actions are not due to Judaism. Neither is like these kinds of incidents. These kinds of incidents have anything to do with Islam. Okay? It's remarkable that it's never about Christianity, by the way, when you have a Christian white supremacist domestic terrorist. That's never because of Christianity, which, by the way, it isn't. It isn't because of Christianity. Like, just so you understand, it's just that these people never actually think it's because of Christianity. Christianity is never a point of radicalization or a reasoning for the violence. They have a way of conceptualizing that violence through different points of radicalization. They just never offer it or extend it to, you know, non-white actors in general. But once again, I am not a person that says Christianity is the point of radicalization, or Judaism is the point of radicalization, or Islam is the point of radicalization. I'm consistent on this. Okay?
A pickup truck drove into the crowds and killed 15 people. As you can see, a lot of activity on the ground there as police officers, FBI, and also it looks like potentially a bomb disposal unit descend on that address, Crescent Park Drive and Hugh Road in Houston in Texas. The US Army veteran with an ISIS flag on his truck, we now know, swerved around makeshift barriers to drive into the crowds in the French Quarter of New Orleans early in the morning of New Year's Day, killing 15 people in an attack officials believe was now carried out with the help of others. The suspect has been identified, Shamsud Din Jabbar, 42 years old. We know he's a US citizen from Texas who once served in Afghanistan.
Yeah, we already covered this, but it's, again, looks like the FBI jumped the gun saying there was more than one person involved. Yeah, they were just innocent bystanders. The video that was reviewed by law enforcement that reportedly appeared to show potential accomplices dragging explosive devices does not show the suspect's accomplices, but rather innocent bystanders. Imagine surviving a fucking terror attack and then getting terrorized only a couple hours later by the state because they think you were being suspicious. That's crazy. I also don't understand how you buy an ISIS flag. Like, where the heck do you buy an ISIS flag online? Like, is there just a Etsy shop or something? I guess Red Scare used to sell ISIS merchandise. Amazon? It is given to you by the CIA. He will have made it himself. How do you even make a... ISISflags.com. I was co-workers in university with some guy who got honeypotted into joining ISIS, and he printed an ISIS flag at the university library. You know, the honeypot thing is also pretty self-selecting because it's exactly the type of dude who would use the university printer to print it out. That is also the type of stupid guy that would be honeypotted by the Defense Department. Like, you have to already, your starting point needs to be unimaginably stupid. That's why I specifically said that the FBI used to do this to like genuinely intellectually disabled Muslim teenagers online. Like dudes with significant intellectual development issues that they would just like point to online to be like, yeah, this is the guy. We found him. He was doing this sophisticated act of terror. And it's like, and then you find out it's like, no, it was the guy he was talking to in the chat room, the FBI guy that was like feeding him all of this stuff.
Intelligence, like you name it. It's like that's all happening.
And Jesse, again, joining us live from New Orleans. We understand the concern about these bollards and that they weren't in place for this attack. But is there any indication that the attacker was aware that had potentially cased the area before the attack?
At this point, Lester, we haven't seen anything from officials about potential other targets in the city of New Orleans. But what I can tell you is something that would potentially be a prime target in the city this week and also next month is where I am right now. This is the Superdome. It is supposed to host a football game. It was supposed to host it tonight in just a matter of a couple of hours, but that was postponed because of the events in the early morning hours. They have delayed the game.
Wait, what?
Super Bowl is also supposed to be played here now.
Oh my God. The same flag the New Orleans terrorists had can be seen at pro-Palestine rallies around the world when they claim globalized Intifada. Dude, please stop. I don't know why Israel supporters, I don't know why Israel defenders use every opportunity to be like, every opportunity to once again be like, no, you don't understand. Like, all the pro-Palestine people are also pro-ISIS, which is so crazy because one, Israel's methods and actions closely resemble ISIS. Two, Israel has literally aligned openly with ISIS numerous times. So I don't know why these guys keep repeating the ISIS line over and over again. Hamas and ISIS are at odds with one another. Hamas has killed significantly more ISIS people than Israel has. Than Israel has even healed, okay? Also, I don't think these aren't ISIS flags. Oh my God. It's like all those stories of the dudes getting arrested for wearing a bandana that has Arabic lettering on it. And the Arabic lettering will be like, I like chocolate. And then they get arrested and they're like, dude, I'm wearing a headband that says I like chocolate on it. And it's like, nope, well, sorry. It looks a little too close to what we suspect is terrorism. Now, the other, I mean, dude, listening to Blowback Season 3 on the Korean War is a somber reminder that Western chauvinism and the attitudes that Western states have had, and Israel is obviously an extension of the Western state, United States of America, has not changed at all. Where Blowback Season 3 focuses during the Korean War how the Marines and the American military and the unified UN coalition of forces, how they treated the Koreans as subhuman, using remnants of the original, the term, the G word with two O's and a K, not like any other G word. There's a couple of them. And it's certainly not gusano, by the way. That's not a real G word. Anyway, just don't say it. The word originated through the Philippines initially, and was utilized by mainstream resources, by mainstream media. Like, they just straight up write it in their articles when referencing Koreans in general. And a big part of it, like a big part of the consent being manufactured at the time, revolved around like the inhumanity and the barbaric nature of the Korean forces, the Korean militias, or the Korean military. And it's always like a dehumanization that must occur. And the same thing goes for Arabs. Everything Arab related, everything Arab oriented is automatically the inference of terrorism, suspected terrorism. That's it. Yeah, Ivy League economist ethnically profiled, interrogated for doing math on American Airlines flight. 40-year-old man with dark curly hair, olive skin, and an exotic foreign accent boarded a plane. It was a regional jet making a short, uneventful hop from Philadelphia to nearby Syracuse. Or so dozens of unsuspecting passengers thought. The curly-haired man tried to keep to himself, intently, if inscrutably, scribbling on a notepad he'd brought aboard. His seatmate, a blonde-haired 30-something woman sporting flip-flops and a red tote bag, looked him over. He was wearing navy diesel jeans, a red Lacoste sweater, a look he would later describe as simple elegance, but something about him didn't seem right to her. She decided to try out some small talk. Is Syracuse home, she asked. No, he replied curtly. It's just like dude with like, you know, a little bit of neurodivergence, okay? He's doing math on a plane. The person who should have been arrested is the 30-year-old woman because she was wearing flip-flops on a plane. Ain't nobody wants to see your toe jam. Ain't nobody wants to smell it. Ain't nobody wants to be around it. No open-toe shoes. Why are you pro-terrorist? I like that while I'm covering a story about a Ivy League economist being profiled as a terrorist falsely, and how, you know, how racist this stuff is, how so many of these stories just simply revolve around people seeing Arabic and going, well, that's terrorism. Okay. This guy goes, why are you pro-terrorist? I'm not pro-Israel. Okay. I am not pro-American imperialism. I'm not pro-Israeli apartheid state or the Israeli genocide. So no, I am not pro-terrorist. You might be. Try again, chatter.
He get to a point where he believed in what ISIS was saying to put that flag on the back of that pickup truck and drive through this crowd and killing these 15 people? How did he get to that point? One thing that they're looking at there is his travel, specifically some travel that took place in late June, early July of 2023, where he apparently flew from New York's JFK airport to Cairo, Egypt. So they're trying to determine, did he actually get on that plane? Was it in fact him in that trip? What occurred when he went overseas? Did that have any connection to what ultimately became this deadly terror attack? And then apparently once he comes back here, Lester, he flies from Atlanta to Toronto several days later and then comes back here to the U.S. Again, does that have any connection to what we've seen here? So that type of work is going to be ongoing. The FBI is going to be involved with foreign government agencies, foreign law enforcement agencies, to try and determine who he was maybe meeting with overseas, or did it have nothing to do with this at all. It's just part of the work that's going to be ongoing. Closer to home here, Lester, in Houston, the FBI says that they are at a location there where they're
Can you expand on religious violence
activity
in 2025? Do you really believe it's not happening at all? I agree that it's disproportionately leveled at Muslims, a way to demonize them, but I think Christian harassment and violence against Muslims in America is just an example. No, dude. No, because I don't believe that dude, there are multiple billions of people that are believers in all three of the Abrahamic religions. Okay. The majority of this planet believes in one religion. Okay. Over like some religion, something. They're not doing violence because they believe in the religion. They're doing violence because of the material conditions that have impacted them in a negative fashion. They're vulnerable. They get radicalized. In many circumstances, they're doing violence because, you know, they've been taught that this is appropriate. Religion is simply just an additional component in this process. Hyper focusing on religion is so silly. I don't know. I just, you know, it's like saying Buddhism is the most violent religion. Look at Myanmar. You know? So stupid.
And we are going to make sure that we remain safe in our community.
The blaze called in around 8:40 this morning appeared to erupt in seconds. Witnesses describing...
Yeah, ironically enough, no one is calling the Magdeburg guy atheist violence, even though he was a incredibly sweaty atheist, former, you know, he's a atheist, anti-Islam guy, right? Was that an act of atheist violence? No.
Adding, we've never seen anything like this. Retired ATF agent Scott Sweeto says video evidence may be telling in the investigation.
You can see multiple large flashes, and you also hear whistling sounds in that video, and those whistling sounds are very consistent.
Atheism is a religion. I mean, the way that that guy was presenting it, yeah. Basically.
Law enforcement for their swift response as federal investigators dig in. Morgan Chesky, NBC News, Las Vegas.
And let me go back to Tom Winter now. And Tom, I want to pick up now on this story
ratio
breaking
versus atheist. That was racism, not atheism law. I know, dude. That's not my point. I'm not saying that that guy did the violence because of atheism. Oh my God. You guys are missing my point. Please, chatters. I'm not saying that the atheist, anti-Islam guy did violence because he's atheist, okay? You're missing the point. You're agreeing with my point without recognizing that that is my point. Oh.
Truck, Tesla, Elon Musk, huge part of the incoming Trump administration. Even without that, he's a huge entrepreneur in this country, somebody who's a bit of a lightning rod himself. So did this person carry this out in an effort to make a statement against either one of those individuals or both? Or did they just know that I'm going to get a lot of attention by showing up at this Trump property in a Cybertruck and doing something? These are all part of the questions that federal investigators are asking. The FBI has not officially taken over this investigation at this point, Lester, we're told, but we do expect that it is headed towards that direction. And where this ultimately goes, time will tell, and also how this potential explosive was put together in the back of the truck. You heard the fireworks and Morgan's package, but we'll have to figure out exactly what was used and how that was all put together. That's something that investigators are very much going to want to figure out, and what this person was specifically trying to do here today. Obviously, 7 others injured as a result of this, so it is significant and certainly got everybody's attention in Las Vegas today.
And Tom, let me ask you, we know from history that terror attacks change things. You know, we don't carry...
This is unrelated to everything else, but I think Lester Holt is very brave and should be celebrated for having a hairline that I think resembles a different era, you know, like founding fathers or maybe like a monk in a monastery. And the fact that he hasn't gone fully bald, even though I suspect as a black man, it's OP. You could just go bald and look cool. As opposed to when white men go bald like that, they can sometimes look very racist. I really respect that he has kept it. Hairline holding on to dear life, I think, is inappropriate to say because, like, LeBron James's hairline is holding on for dear life, right? Lester Holt does not have a hairline at that point. I don't know what it would be considered. How long has he held that hairline for? I don't know. Not a hairline, it's a scare line. Okay, calm down.
Renovations or not, one thing that was done in New York City last night to prevent this exact type of incident is the parking of sanitation trucks. That's not a high-tech way of fighting terrorism. It's taking a large dump trucks and putting sand in them. But when you set those up on streets and on sidewalks and create real, true physical barriers for somebody to do something, it tends to ward off somebody doing it in the first place, Lester.
All right, Tom Winter, we'll ask you to stand by as we continue our
Look at him when he looks
coverage
down
of the terror attack.
When he looks down, you're like, wow. I respect that he's keeping that. You know what I mean?
New Orleans has been postponed until tomorrow. Our David Noriega now on how the College Bowls are stepping up security after today's deadly attack.
Tonight, police on high alert at major New Year's Day events across the country.